So the Mets are rolling in spring training, and so far to this point, we've seen a good amount of play from all the regulars expected to make the opening day roster, except for one guy, and that player is Brandon Nimmo, who today we received an injection in his knee and will be shut down from baseball activities for 48 to 72 hours. So now we're left wondering, will Nimmo be ready for the opening day roster? We're going to discuss it here today. Okay, so let's go back to the very beginning of camp. Back in January, before pitchers and catchers even arrived, the report on Brandon Nimmo from the New York Post was that he was dealing with a nagging foot injury that could hold him out of part or all of spring training this year. That nagging foot injury, of course, was talking about the plantar fasciitis that Nimmo was dealing with last season and through the Mets playoff run. The article went on to say that Nimmo hopes it will be solved by opening day, but he himself acknowledged he probably wouldn't be in the first Grapefruit League games. And they even referenced how Nimmo and the Mets have adjusted his spring training regimen over the last couple of years, slowly bringing him up and incrementally giving him more game reps so to keep him healthy over a full 162. So at the time of this post, it probably wasn't something that we needed to be too concerned about. Fast forward to February 28th, and Brandon Nimmo finally makes his first spring training appearance against the Washington Nationals. He has 2 plate appearances and draws a walk in one of them. But then Nimmo's foot injury became a knee injury, and we haven't seen him since that game 8 days ago. And the reports from this week are starting to get me a little concerned. On Tuesday, the Post reported that Nimmo felt soreness in his knee after the game against the Nationals, and that pushed him out of the lineup for this past Sunday's game. Fast forward to this past Thursday, and Sports Illustrated reported that an MRI revealed there's no structural damage to Nimmo's knee, that it's just soreness, and he said that he's just waiting for the last 10% before resuming play. Manager Carlos Mendoza went on to say that if it were a regular season game, that Nimmo would likely play in that one on Thursday. And finally, fast forward to today, and we get the news that Nimmo received a gel injection in his knee to lubricate. Sorry, never heard of a gel injection, but apparently it's a good lubricant. Last year marked the 3rd consecutive year Nimmo's played in 151 games or more, and you can tell that plantar fasciitis was definitely barking throughout the playoffs. You could tell out in the field the way he was running the bases, and it even kind of affected his approach at the plate, and it looked like his swing as well. And for the foot issue to be reported before camp and then now turn into a knee issue, which has had several different reports about it over the last week, and finally coming to a head here with an injection, it's hard for me to believe he's going to be ready to play baseball in 19 days. So while fingers are crossed Nimmo will be ready for opening day, the Mets need to do whatever it takes to make sure he's healthy for the majority of the season, instead of being overly concerned with games in the early part of the season of March and April. Which means there may be an open roster spot for a position player heading into the year. The Mets' current roster features 6 outfielders: Nimmo, Juan Soto, Starling Marte, Jesse Winker, Jose Siri, and Tyrone Taylor. Should Nimmo not be ready for opening day, we're probably looking at an outfield from left to right of Tyrone Taylor, Jose Siri, and Juan Soto, with Jesse Winker and Starling Marte likely splitting the DH duties for the most part. So while his bat will be missed, I'm not overly concerned about the effect on the outfield defense in Nimmo's absence. But the question is, what position player would replace him? The Mets did just acquire Alexander Canario from the Cubs 2 weeks ago for cash. He's 25 years old, but he's only appeared in 22 MLB games over the last 2 years. But with those other 5 names already in the outfield, I don't think the Mets need to prioritize adding another one to their roster. And while they're not great, Jesse Winker and Starling Marte could easily play one of the corner outfield positions in a pinch. To me, the guy that's the biggest beneficiary of Nimmo potentially not being ready for opening day is Brett Baty, and let me tell you why. If you watched my previous video debating between Baty and Luis Angel Acuna as the Mets utility man, then you know I sided with Acuna. I cited his defensive versatility and his base running skills. But what I didn't mention in that video is that Acuna also has experience playing center field in the minor leagues, which only adds more depth to the Mets outfield. Meanwhile, Beatty's had a hot spring and is coming off a really strong ending to his season at AAA Syracuse last year, and he would immediately become the Mets' strongest bat off the bench while hopefully continuing to develop at other positions. So while I don't think this news today means Nimmo's going to miss the entire season, I do think the Mets need to be prepared not to have him for opening day, and the best thing they could do is to replace him with the best bat, that being Brett Beatty. So what do you guys think? Are you concerned about the Nimmo injury news? Do you think he'll be ready for opening day? If not, how would you align the outfield defense? And lastly, who should replace Nimmo on this roster if he's not ready to go for opening day? Let me know in the comment section below. Just 19 days away from opening day. Let's go Mets.